the worst thing for founders and CEOs is to be reactive all the time. Like you get hit from literally everywhere, and if you are only reactive to actions and situations, you will not have time
Yep.
to actually run the business. So you need to distance yourself sometimes from all of that and go back to the basics, like why I started this, what is the solution I'm trying to build, and what is the challenge I'm trying to solve.
This episode is sponsored by the venture capital firm Endure Capital. Endure Capital invests in early stage companies that will achieve incredible impact. If you're a founder that fits this criterion, contact the Endure Capital team on www.endurecap.com. Thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible. Welcome to the Startups Arabia podcast. I'm very happy to have as my guest today Mai Medhat. Mai is the co-founder of the event management platform Eventtus, a huge force in the startup ecosystem in the region. She's connecting with me from Dubai. My first experience with Eventtus. This is my first time to actually virtually meet Mai, but my first experience with Eventtus was at Rise Up, where I was using the product. And I remember reflecting on what a delightful product it is. It just did the job very effectively, and it did it in a way that worked seamlessly, and there weren't like crashes and what typically happens when we use many of these event softwares. So with that incredibly positive experience with Eventtus, I'd like to welcome you, May. Welcome.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm happy you like the product.
I love that. So, just to get us started, I'd love to, if in a few minutes, if you tell us about like the story of what drove you to the startup world, and to make Eventtus. What happened? You started as just a normal software engineer, and then take us from there.
Sure. Yeah, I graduated as a software engineer. I love computers. I love internet. I love making things, and I love events. Like I'm a social person by nature. I like to connect with people. I like to meet new people, make new friends. I'm a very social person, and I used to attend a lot of like conferences and events and. I remember like attending few events. Like my personal experience wasn't great because I felt there's more that we can do and we can achieve. Like for example, I can be sitting on the same table with someone who can be like very relevant to my experience, who can help, and he's willing to that. But I don't know this person. There was like no way for attendees to network and socialize on a digital platform before or during the event and definitely after the event. So you just go there if you are not like social enough, if you can't network over coffee or like on the dinner table and all of that, you can't really connect with people. So it started from here. We got the idea. Um, we did a lot of research, and that was I don't know, like maybe a decade ago. So there wasn't a lot of like competition and a lot of like apps for events. So we decided like I like this very much to the extent that I decided I would quit my job and focus on this full time. And at the same time, I was very interested in like startups and what's happening in the valley and Silicon Valley. It wasn't a lot of this happening in our region, especially in Egypt back then. It was very new. So everything, like all the information, all the news, the articles, everything you read on TechCrunch was like basically on Silicon Valley startups. So I was very interested in that, trying to educate myself about it. And I just, that's it, quit my job, decided that this is something very interesting. I would like to explore more. I would like to dig deeper in. And the journey of Eventus started. And yeah, I we were a very small team. We decided to build everything from scratch. We decided to bootstrap before even um, like going into an accelerator or investors or anything. We spent some time learning about the market itself, like the events market, and understanding the market like inside out, like what happens, what technology is there already, what organizers are using, what attendees are looking for. So when we build a product, as you said in the beginning, it needs to work. And of course, like we did a lot of mistakes. It took us a very long time, but every step was very inspiring, educational. We tried to learn from our mistakes.
Wonderful. And can you tell us about that early, market finding process? What was your first customer, for example? How did you win them? How did you get them to be on board? How did you learn about their needs?
We talked to a lot of customers. That was the first thing, and I think the most important thing. Like we weren't shy to go and try to speak to anyone who is interested or who is working on the event space, just to get their feedback. Number one, and ask them about their needs and what they are looking for. One interesting finding, for example, was from the beginning, we were building like a networking tool. Was the core of Eventtus from the beginning and the vision. Like we wanted to connect all the stakeholders, um, like from attendees, speakers, sponsors, exhibitors, anyone who's like a stakeholder at the event. But at the same time, when we spoke to early customers, we found out they actually care more about the ticketing part or invitation system, and like they want to make sure that someone will actually come and attend their event, so it will happen before they care about like the during event experience and the networking part. So that was a very interesting finding. um, we had to build it. Like we explored all the options, and then we actually built this small ticketing platform or booking platform to make sure that customers they have customers, like the customers of our customers. So we promote the event. There's ticket sales, so it's actually something that's going to happen. And then once this satisfied our customers, and then they were interested to listen about the other product we have, which was our core product. So it was like maneuvering around to get early customers to the platform.
So yeah, I mean, I guess what I would underline or what I would double click on there is the fact that you didn't stick to your stubbornly to your original vision, but you actually listened to the problems of your customer that you were trying to serve, and you pivoted quickly to that, and you delivered real value to them, and that's how you kind of sold.
Exactly. And it's also a different way, like as an entrepreneur or as a founder. um, I always say like you need to be open-minded and like listening to customers. And also customer acquisition is there's a different ways to look at customer acquisitions. Like marketing is one way, but also it can be something in the product itself, like a new feature or a new expansion in the product that will unlock more customers and attract more customers to the product itself. So it wasn't only like this is what we do, this is what we sell, this is how much it is. We were flexible enough to actually listen to customers and add on the product, not only by pushing more on sales and marketing.
Interesting. So could you give an example of this product kind of led marketing or indirect marketing through the product?
Um, there is a lot like this. The ticketing one is like the very obvious one for us for
Right.
Eventtus, and it actually turned out to be very profitable and to be like a revenue stream on its own. Like by time we actually grew this, and it was a different revenue stream. And we
Yes.
used to, and it was like a major revenue stream for us. So it started as an acquisition tool, and it turned out to
Hmm.
be like a real product.
Right. Okay. And can you tell me, I mean, when you felt, at what stage did you feel you had like product market fit, that yes, this is going to work, we're going to we have something here?
Product market fit. Yeah, of course. It took some time actually, um, but I remember once we unlocked like a certain type of customers, and it was repeating customers. Um, at the beginning, we were only getting like smaller size events or conferences,
Hmm.
which was like the maximum was 500, maybe 1,000 attendees max. But for us, when we started, we wanted to unlock like huge conferences and exhibitions and all of that. And once we once we got into this stage, we knew that we have like product market fit, because it was repeat customers that we didn't know in our network. Because at the beginning, as an entrepreneur, you rely on your network, your investors. We started with entrepreneurship and startups events, which basically we were in the ecosystem. So we started with ecosystem events. So we knew them some way or another through introductions, through investors' introductions, or sometimes they were supporting a startup, so they were trying the product. But once we get out of this ecosystem, we knew that we had something, and it's real and it's scaling. And I think by that time we also moved to Dubai. So we started in Dubai because it is, and it wasn't still like the hub for events and conferences in the region.
Yep.
Um, so once we got like into a bigger remote market that we didn't know anyone in this market, and it was like pure sales because they liked the product, not because we knew them or we had a personal relationship with them. I think that was like the biggest trigger for us that this is working, this is something big, and it can grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I would argue that even the startup conferences, even though they wanted to support, but they wouldn't have used your product if it wasn't actually a good and useful product. So it was a great sign in and of itself, and it shows your the quality of your work. And now you guys are like, you have over 20,000 events on your platform in over 60 cities. So I mean, it's a huge amount of progress you've made. So, I mean, now 10 years almost after you started Eventtus, 1 year ago, there was a very big event in the startup's life, which is the acquisition by Bevy in the US. And it was quite, for me, it was such a logical thing to happen. I had heard first about Bevy from CMX because I'm interested in community management. So I know they when they made the acquisition of CMX, that's when I first heard of Bevy, and then they acquired you as well. So it was like everything I'm a fan of, they keep acquiring. So it was interesting to see that happening. But I'd really love you to go deep because I mean there haven't been that many exits in the region, many definitely even less acquisitions specifically. So if you could tell us about how this happened in as much detail as you can, I'd really love to hear it, and I'm sure the audience would.
Sure. As you said, it makes sense. Like the two products actually complement each other's. Bevy is focused on community management, and specifically community events, like community-led events. For example, imagine something like Startup Grind. It's basically an organization that organizes events across the world, with one or two big conferences in a year. But there's thousands, hundreds of other volunteers who actually organize local events in their cities. This is happening in like Google GDG or the developer program. There's more, like specifically in the tech industry. This is a growing trend, and it's very interesting and useful trend for communities to actually get together and learn about products, and it brings company revenues that way. So they focus on events from a different perspective than what we focus on. They have a very interesting product, and our technology can actually complement that to empower large scale conferences, and also the mobile app. It made sense, like in the community industry, there is no one providing an app like ours, and that can be a huge advantage to customers, and huge advantage to defensibility as well for Bevy. So it made sense. We knew them for long time because Startup Grind is one of our customers, which is a sister company to Bevy. And actually, CMX is also one of our customers. We have been working with them for 3, 4 years before the acquisitions. So we had this connection, we had this relationship. Um, and then when COVID happened, there was a lot of like consolidations in the market. There was a lot of like the need for more innovation in the market, I would say, in the events. And we I believe we did a good job in like pivoting from the physical world to the virtual world for events. And we adopted our technology and mobile app and everything in very short time. We managed to actually launch a full virtual events platform. And we had a decent size of like customers and events. We had a really good feedback from conferences and from attendees. So adding the two technologies together, it made sense, and it made sense for both of us to unlock totally different scale.
Okay, so I mean, what happened? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? How did this? I mean, they knew you. Obviously, you knew each other for a few years.
They approached us, and as I said, like it made sense. Like they were looking for something. We were always like connected. We were chatting, like me and Derek, the CEO. We were chatting as like two founders were in the same situation, and COVID happened, and we were like um, exploring ideas and and just like checking on what's happening. And then he brought up this conversation. Um, it made sense. We also like by that time, like the idea of an exit or an acquisition was already on our mind as founders for Eventtus, because we received different other offers. Because as I said, like when something very big happened in the industry, like COVID, you start to see a lot of consolidations, a lot of like bigger companies trying to innovate, and usually they are slower than startups and slower than smaller teams who can actually um, innovate, build something, and like change their processes and everything, and start something faster than corporates and faster than big companies. So that was a trend in the market. So we already like have been seeing this. So we have been like talking about it internally, and we got approached by a few other companies actually interested in acquiring Eventtus, and it was about like, are we willing to do this or not? And the second question is, who is the best player or the best fit?
Yeah, makes sense. And when you talk about best fit, are you talking basically financially, or are there other things you looked at?
Financially is one thing, but this is mainly for, of course, founders, but also investors and shareholders. They look at that. But for us, it was like the full package. Like how, like culture was a big thing at Eventus, and the team, and team security, and and the product itself. We are a product first company, so we really care about the product and adding an impact by the product. So this was one big thing that we focused on. And overall, like the size of the company, how are we going to add to them, and how they are going to add to us as well. Is there like a path or career path for the team also to be on board? The business case, like in general, does it make sense or not? Because we have seen some acquisitions where like they just like take the team and shut down the
Right.
company. Some other there's different ways for acquisitions. So this is one thing we didn't want. We wanted to actually like contribute with the technology itself. So it wasn't like an aqua hire. We need some engineers in the space, and we will assign them to work on whatever we want. So this was one of the red flags for us, I would say. We wanted to continue what we built and continue on the same vision. And the second was like alignment. Like as I said, like culture was a big thing. So we wanted to make sure that we are aligned. And because we had this long-term connection with Bevy and relationship with Bevy through CMX, through Startup Grind, and knowing the people and the team itself, um, we felt they have a similar culture. Um, we
Right.
felt it just it felt it felt right, and at the same time, it was like
Right.
the financials. It was a good terms, and it was
Of
one of the
course.
best deals
Yeah.
we got.
And how long did the process take from that first conversation with Derek until you actually closed the deal and the money was the money was transferred, the contract was signed?
Wow, great question. I would say 5 to 6 months, give or take. Yeah, yeah, which is not long to be honest. Like I have seen more. Like from the beginning, the paperwork itself, like this is it's as if you're fundraising. So from the beginning, like
Yeah.
fundraising, we usually say it takes like 6 to 9 to a year, maybe more in our region. But like we were we were trying to be efficient, and also the more prepared both sides, like the more your books are in place, your paperwork, your legal structure and all of that, if it's in place, that it makes it easier to finalize everything quickly. And also the biggest part is basically getting approvals from everyone, like all the shareholders, they need to be on board, and you need
I
there's
can
a lot
imagine.
of like communication.
I can imagine that that could have been hard, with many shareholders. What about post acquisition? Did you start planning for the post acquisition phase, like towards the end of the actual acquisition closing, or did you start the post acquisition phase after you closed the deal and announced it, and then you started? And what was in the post acquisition activities? What did you do?
Yeah, uh, I would say there was like three phases. The first phase is founders only, trying to make the business case out of this acquisition. So it was us, the founders, main shareholders or main investors, and from the other side, the founders as well. And we had a lot of like meetings, a lot of communication, trying to make sense, trying to get to know each other as people, as like like these are two teams or two groups of founders who will be joining forces and working together. So we try to connect on even a personal level, getting to know the people and making sure that this is a team you actually want to work with them after the acquisition. So this was the first thing. And then once it made sense and we agreed on everything, there was the second phase was like paperwork slash
Mm.
preparing for what happens after the acquisition. So the paperwork was one thing, and the communication with investors and getting everything and everyone on board, making sure we have negotiations for the best deal and all of that. And of course, involving lawyers and the legal stuff. But at the same time, we were working in parallel about like, how are we going to communicate it to the team? Who should we tell from the team first? What's the communication plan on both sides, of course? And and also like, how how are we going to integrate the two technologies together or the two products together? What's the final result? What are the milestones that we want to achieve? So that was like more in depth or in detail preparing, I would say, for what happens after the acquisition. Um, and that was very useful because if we skip this part and we announce that we are merging the two companies or we're getting acquired, when you tell the team, at least for us at Eventtus, when we told the team, there was a lot of like questions and a lot of insecurities, and some people didn't know what does it mean for them, what does it mean for them even professionally, career wise, job security, and all of that. So when we prepared that together, we had a plan, and we answered all the questions, or at least most of the questions. So there was, we were going with a plan. It
Right.
wasn't just like we're announcing the acquisition and then we'll figure it out post acquisition.
Absolutely. So you kind of you prepared a communication plan, you prepared a product integration plan, and you prepared a team integration plan, and you actually executed that off the bat, and that made things much more effective. Cool.
Yes, exactly. And that made the third phase very, it wasn't easy, of course, but it made it easier once
Right.
we were, now we're one company and we're working together. Everyone had a plan for what they should do at least for
Okay.
the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. So let me like go back a little in the story, and on the way to this acquisition, you raised monies, I think, more than once, a total of over $4 million. So can you tell us about these raises? You know how they happened, and why you decided to raise each stage and how it went.
Sure. Um, at the beginning, we put scrap for some time. We wanted to have an MVP, have something working and proven to be working, at least with some customers. And then we raised the seed round from angel investors, and it was, I would say, the Kickstarter for us. It was a booster to get us to really build the product that we need, to have the MVP and like the real MVP that can be scalable, and also the processes, the infrastructure, and all of that. And then and having angels at this round um, was very useful because angels usually invest in the founders, invest in the team, and by invest I mean they invest also their time. They act as mentors, so it was an easier relationship with them. Whenever we like at this phase, I would say um, we were learning a lot of things. We were learning what's corporate structure. We were learning what are board meetings, how to manage board meetings, how to hire a team, how to scale the team, how like a lot of things that usually for a first time founder you don't get exposed to before being in the situation itself. So having a mentor and having um, early investors who are invested in this, this was invaluable for us. Um, and then the next stage is basically scaling up. And this is where we moved to Dubai, and we were looking for um, basically investors in the region. Like we decided that we want to scale regionally. So Dubai, Saudi. And so we tried to get in contact with some investors in the region, and it made sense because we needed the network, we needed the exposure, we needed the connections to get us to the next level. And we had the product. It was still very early when it comes to revenues, but the product was very strong and the vision was strong from the beginning. So we managed to get some early stage investors, and then after
How,
that,
how big was
let's
that
say a
round?
year or
Sorry.
2 years after that, um, around
And
$500,000.
then after that, you sorry.
Um, yeah, and then after that, we got into the first the Series A round. Once we spent like a year in Dubai or a year and a half in Dubai, we had some regional customers. We had the team, we had the sales process, we had something that it felt scalable, and it felt um, um, we knew this is something that if we spend more money on it, it will scale, it will reach to the next level. So by then we knew we were ready for the Series A round. And we got more serious investors, institutional investors, I would say. And it was a bigger round. It was a 2 million round, and then we took it from there. And then the last round was when COVID happened.
No, tell me that story.
Sure. So COVID happened. We were in a very good track. We had a great first quarter in 2020. We had a lot of like I remember this, like February. I have been like all over the place. We had customers in the US, in Dubai, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi, and like different places. And for some reason, I had to attend some of these events, so I was traveling all the time. And then I came back to Cairo, and there was a lockdown. Like literally few days after I landed, there was a lockdown. You can't go anywhere. Airports shut down and all of that. And then COVID was a reality. And all our business model is built on gatherings and people meeting each others. And at the beginning, we had, this denial phase where you're like, this is nothing. It's going to pass. It's just a few weeks, and then we'll go back to normal. And then you realize that this is the normal. It's bigger than what we expected. For us, because we had this global exposure, so we have seen it first. We had some events in like Singapore and Asia, and it was the first events to get cancelled and postponed. So we started seeing the trend early on, and we had to act fast on it. So we were, after passing like the first denial and shock phase, we had to go back to drawing board. Like, now what are we going to do? We involved everyone in the process, like the team, investors, everyone, and we started thinking, what should we do? And it was very hard phase, I would say. And we decided that we have we're we're engineers. We know how to code. We're ready. We're building a digital platform for events. So what does it need to convert this into a virtual platform for events? And like it was very pivotal moment, I would say, in the journey of Eventtus. And we got the idea. We tried to reimagine what is a virtual event or a virtual conference, and we drafted everything. We tried to understand the market. We spoke to customers, and actually, I felt more responsible actually to build this because our customers were coming back to us and asking us as a technology experts, like, what should we do? So instead of us going after customers and actually trying to convince them to use the product, they were coming back to us and asking us, what should we do about
Yep.
our business, like the entire business. Um, so we had a plan. We put together a plan, and we went to investors, and we got backed by actually existing investors and new
Nice.
investors as well.
So you turned the challenge into a new opportunity, so to speak. So, I mean,
Exactly.
what would
Yeah.
you say are the lessons? I mean, right now we're kind of the world is going into an economic slowdown. We have the war in Ukraine and its effect on the world economy. A lot of VCs are like holding off on their investments and delaying them and things like that. So we're seeing people lay off startups, especially lay off employees globally and in the region. So, are there any lessons like from this COVID-19 hit that you especially took because you were in this real life gathering business at the time, but you really pivoted quickly? Are there like lessons for startups in the current environment, in your opinion?
Yeah, of course. Um, I actually see it as very similar situation to what happened at COVID. I think different sectors are affected now with the economic situation. Maybe it wasn't like the same sectors affected during COVID. Like COVID, it was events, travel, anything physical basically got affected. But on the contrary, anything that's delivery, e-commerce was booming. Like people staying at home and they are ordering anything and anything they can online. So we saw a huge boom on delivery, on logistics, on e-commerce in general, like anything e-commerce. And now these sectors are actually the most people are affected by the war and the economic situation and what's happening because it was like growth at any cost. You need to grow, you need to have a bigger market share, and then and people forgot about like unit economics and
Hmm.
profitability and all of that. But the biggest lesson, at least for us during COVID, is even that we could raise during COVID, which was very rare for events platform to fundraise during COVID. Um, it was a very expensive money, and it was also very hard. And we knew that we need to be cautious about what's happening, and we were not sure if the COVID would be like for a few months, for a year or more. So we were trying to be smart in spending this money. So we took all the measures from the beginning, like any cost cutting that we can do on like whatever platforms, on tools that we are not using, on anything that we can optimize. So optimization was a big topic that we talk about, like in every team meeting we talk about optimization. So that was very big and very important for us. I think now we are back to this, and we are back to like the basics of startups. When you start as when you bootstrap, you have limited resources, and startups
Yep.
in general they have limited resources, and you need to be cautious about how are you spending these resources. And I think like different things, especially with like the layoffs that's happening right now, which also happened during COVID. Um, Communication is very important, especially not only for the teams or the individuals who are affected by the layoff, but it's crucial for people who are staying in the company to have faith in the company, to have also credibility on the management and the leadership of the company, and the future of the company, to keep working as hard as they can to actually build the next phase of the company and the future of the company. Because when this big event, especially layoffs, and with the amounts we are seeing right now, like a lot of people are like 30% cuts or more, this is huge. So everyone in the company, they feel um, insecure, they feel they might be next, they feel hesitant about the founders or the leadership. and they start to question everything. They start to question all the decisions and all the like the vision of the company and all of that. And we're also seeing like on the global scale, we're seeing startups who are like literally shutting down
Yep.
and very well funded startups. So it hits the team. So I would say like communication is very crucial and it's very important, and it's on the leadership team and on the founders to actually be emphasized and to communicate transparently with their team and explain what's happening, because sometimes what we know as founders or VCs or like a leadership team, sometimes it's not translated or it's not like taken
Yep.
as the same with individuals. Um, so this is like the biggest lesson for me, to be honest. Yeah, the second thing is basically
Mhm.
the product itself. Like whatever the solution you're building, you need to be innovative and also like I have seen some companies who continue to do what they are doing um, even with the changes. Like the world is changing around us right now, the same way it was changing during COVID. So COVID, people are not going out their houses. Now people are insecure, they're spending less, there is inflation, so they are spending less on anything that's luxury, and sometimes not spending or trying to like even save on necessities. So if the company or if the management team or the leadership team doesn't like rethink what's their product plan or what's their strategy, because we started this with some market conditions, and now these market conditions are changing and the user behavior is changing, so we need to go back and like revisit this strategy. It might be the same for some companies, but for I would say for a lot of
Yep.
companies, they need to change as well. They need to be flexible enough to like know where to spend, know where to, what are the bets or the new bets they are making to grow this and have
Right.
a sustainable business.
Yeah. So, I mean, the three things you brought up are so important for companies in times like these. But if you adopt them, they're actually useful for a startup at any time. So, one is being capital efficient, being aware of costs and not going crazy just because you raised a lot of money, say, to, spend it, overspend. The second is communication and communicating clearly to the team at all times. And the third is flexibility with the product and really being having your ear to the ground with the market and knowing when the market has changed and being responsive to the needs of your customers and being customer focused. And really these are great lessons in general, and even more so, of course, in times of where there isn't that much money around to support inefficiency and things like that. So all great lessons. Thank you, Mai. um, all right, let me move the conversation a little. I have a few questions here. So, I mean, what do you see is like? Let's talk about the regional. I know now you're part of a U.S. Company, but uh, for the region here, what do you see as the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities of working and starting a startup here?
um, like opportunities are it's the same, I would say. Like we have a lot of challenges which is can be translated into opportunities when you build solutions for it or you build products or companies to solve these challenges. And it's across the region. So we have seen and we will see more like startups from Egypt, from Dubai, from Saudi, and they are serving like the entire MENA region, because it's similar one way or another, and the challenges are similar. Also, the opportunities in like fundraising now is way easier than when we
Yep.
started, for example, or even like 3 4 years ago. There's more opportunities, there's more success cases, and success stories in the region, either acquisitions or even companies going public, or scaling and being like a very big profitable companies. So we're seeing this trend, and we have more and more, I would say, experienced founders, which will help in like accelerating the time to really kick off the startup. Like it took us a long time when we started to actually understand what we're building and understand the dynamics of the market and the investment and all of that. And even like to
Yep.
fundraise, it took us a very long time. But now there's more access to capital, there's more market, there's more maturity, there's more like internet is everywhere, and access to like smartphones is everywhere. So all of that helped, and of course like the fintech revolution that's happening in the region, and so all of that is helping in creating the next generation of startups, um, and even the startups from the early days, like the early employees or the founders, they are now coming back and starting new business and new companies. So that adds a lot to their experience and credibility, and they are not doing the mistakes they have seen in the first startup, for example, or
Yep.
witnessed in the first companies. So all of that is very very big, and it's all opportunities. I think what's happening economically right now, we will see. Like no one can tell how long this will last. But at the same time, we're seeing startups fundraising. We're seeing like there is a lot of like, I would say the focus would be on necessities more than luxury products right now, or at least for the next couple of years. Profitability will be one big ask from investors to be able to fundraise. So these are like the few things, if startups and founders like considered from the beginning, I think they will be in
Yep.
a
I
good
love that
shape.
answer. Um, so
Thank you.
it's just typical of the best founders, the looking at the opportunities, even looking at the challenges as opportunities. Um, yeah. So going back to the story of Eventus, were there ever turning points or tough times during the other than COVID, where you actually considered maybe closing Eventus or not continuing on the path? Did you ever meet hard times like that, or were things pretty uh, smooth?
Nothing is pretty smooth. It's always
Yeah.
ups and downs. um, yeah, of course. Like fundraising on its own is very challenging, and sometimes you feel like even if you have the deal and you have everything, the deal is not
Yep.
closed until the money is in the bank. So things can get dragged to an extent that you can literally be tracking your like bank account and balance, and if the money is not in like the right time, you will run out of cash. So even if everything is going well, it looks fine, you have a term sheet, even if you signed like a shareholder agreement, but if the money is not really in the bank, it's not done. It's not, you don't have a deal. So fundraising is always stressful, and it's very like emotionally stressful for founders and CEOs specifically. Um, and also like competition, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you are building a startup. Sometimes you hire your a star employee or like executive, and you believe this is the person that will take the company to the next level, and then they get headhunted to another
Yeah.
company for example. So it happens all the time. You just need to be flexible enough. You need to be prepared for all of that, and don't get emotionally involved to an extent that you can't actually focus um,
Yeah.
and get out of it. I would say, like the worst thing for founders and CEOs is to be
Hmm.
reactive all the time. Like you get hit from literally everywhere, and if you are only reactive to actions and situations, you will not have time
Yep.
to actually run the business. So you need to distance yourself sometimes from all of that and go back to the basics, like why I started this, what is the solution I'm trying to build, and what is the challenge I'm trying to solve, and inspire your team and build an ownership within the team to
Right.
actually help you achieve that.
Okay. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And for everyone's thinking of starting up, this is a warning from May that it's a stressful life. It's a fulfilling life, but it is stressful. I would double click on that one.
Very stressful.
So okay,
Yeah.
yeah, let's like maybe go to the bigger picture of the ecosystem a little, and maybe give advice to people and also shed light on something. So I'd like to ask you some questions on that. For example, uh, I'm supposing that you sometimes advise, uh, founders who are in an earlier stage and all that. And I would like to ask you, I mean, your advice, for example, on how to choose a co-founder.
Yes.
What's the best way to do that? And what is a good co-founder relationship?
Uh, that's a great question. I love that. Because I don't know how solo founders are actually like they manage to do this. It's very hard. And co-founders, they can make it or break it because they are your first team, your first supporters. Um, and there's a lot of like dynamics that can go wrong between co-founders. So the first advice is basically choose the person that you can trust. Like trust is by far is the biggest thing when it comes to choosing a co-founder, because things will go wrong. You will have fights internally, um, and like anything and everything you can think of can literally go wrong. But if there is no trust, um, it
Right.
will just like break the relationship. But if there is a trust and there's some boundaries and some transparency in the situation, um, and I would say the second thing is respect, because when you respect your co-founder, you listen, and everyone they need a second opinion. Like like founders and CEOs, they can't just go and like make all the decisions on their own. They need someone to challenge them. They need someone to think with them, to brainstorm with them, to actually come up with the best decision. Um, and all the decisions like business, product, from fundraising, choosing investors, and all of that. But at the same time, having this trust and respect, eventually it will help in another area, which is basically each of the founders, they should have a specific part of the organization that
Right.
they are responsible on, or a specific like they complement each others and their skills and their what they are doing. So for example, if you have like a product or a financial or business or a technical founder, um, you can make all that, you can challenge everything the way you want, but at the end you need to respect who is making the decisions, and you need to follow that. Like and even if you have like a very experienced CTO, once the CEO makes the decision, the whole team should follow, and like the whole company should follow and rally around this decision and make it happen. um, but it's very important to challenge and listen, and also for like the CEO and the founder to actually listen to that, because no one can make all the
Yep.
right
Agree.
decisions.
Okay. Final question before like we go into the rapid fire questions. Um, because I mean, some of the people listening to us are not really familiar with the ecosystem and the culture in the region and things like that. What are your views, or what's your experience as a female founder in the Arab region? Do you feel there have been any disadvantages, advantages, experiences in general?
Uh, I have a love-hate relationship
Yeah,
with this
I
question,
know.
to
I
be
read
honest.
about it in an interview. You were saying
uh,
male. You don't see a difference between male and female founders. I agree with that, but you know, people want to listen to this reply regardless. So I thought I'd ask it.
sure. It's definitely challenging, but on the other side, because this is like, let's all admit, like, this is a male dominated industry by all means, from founders to VCs to investors to everyone. Like, the whole ecosystem is male dominated. However, um, you need to be very credible. You need to be, for as a female, you need to be very credible, very courageous, very smart. Basically, you need to up your game like 10 times, to get in, and to get seen um, as a like a founder in general. But at the same time, we're not seeing like the crazy stories we're hearing in Silicon Valley or in other regions, or all of that. Like, um, I think what people are expecting is, if you are smart enough, if you are good enough as a founder in general, which is a little bit harder to prove if you're female, because there are some stereotyping and all of this. But once you do that, a lot of people are willing to support, and I personally got a lot of support from everyone, and not only females, but there's a lot of like most of our early investors were male. They were mentors, they were supporters, they were advisors, and just, I think one advice to female founders is not to be shy, and go the extra mile, and go and ask, and be furious about like your asks and your questions, and what you are doing. It's just an You need to do an extra work to actually prove it to everyone, internally in the company, in the team, and externally with the ecosystem, with customers, with VCs, and with everyone. I don't see it as a black and white situation. It's not black, definitely, but it's not also very welcoming ecosystem. But at the same time, once you are proving good, everyone will actually be there to support and to help, even if they are not, like, for example, investors. Even if they are not investing, they are willing to help with connections, they are willing to help with introductions, with a lot of things. So don't take it personally. This is happening everywhere, and I think even the numbers in our region is way better than a lot of other regions when it comes to fundraising
Yep.
for female-led startups. Um, to like all the numbers, even the team, and the diversity inside the team. Um, like most of the startups, at least I know, they have a good ratio between female
Yeah,
and
it's one of
females.
the, I think, the most surprising things for people from outside the region when they realize that we have a better probably statistics than the US, for example, on these things. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I mean, do you
exactly.
do any angel investing or startup advising or things like that if somebody wants to reach out to you?
Advising, yes, of course.
Not yet.
Investments, not yet. On my mind, haven't
Cool.
officially done it
Okay,
yet.
so I mean, thank you very much for all these
but hopefully soon.
great conversations. And I had just to wrap up a few quick fire questions, um, um, and then we close. So the first one is there a book or books that you like to recommend to people?
The hard thing about
Yeah,
hard things.
I totally agree with that one. It's just, you feel like he's telling your story when you read it. Yeah.
Yes.
So, any the second question: what's your go-to de-stressing thing that you do? How do you de-stress when you're under a lot of stress?
um, Travel if I can. If not, totally disconnect and watch movies and TV
Okay.
series.
Of course, in COVID that was difficult, so it must have been just all movies.
Yeah, Netflix and chill
Yeah. So,
all the time.
who do you think we should have on the podcast as a guest?
Um, Omar Gabr from Instabug. He is a founder that I truly respect, and
Right.
Amir Sharif
They're
from
on our
Wasf,
target list, so I'm
previously
glad
Wasf.
you think so. Um, uh, okay, one other quick fire question, which is, what's the question that you thought, that I haven't asked you that maybe I should have?
That's a hard one. Nothing in my mind, to be honest. Yeah, actually, I have one.
Yeah. Um, I think the question is basically how does it feel for founders to sell their companies? This is the
Yep.
most question I get since the acquisition. And to give you briefly the answer, I think it's a mix of feelings. Like before that, there was like it's very emotional. It's very it needs a lot of like maturity from founders, like emotionally to distance themselves from like the attachment of like the company itself. um, but at the same time, this is the goal, like that everyone is working towards to build great company, sell it and then start a new one or do something else in their lives. So
Yep.
it's I expected to hear that question.
Yeah, so it's almost like sending your kid to college. So
Exactly.
it had to happen, but it's like, it doesn't feel, it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
one thing which
so.
is like I can imagine a lot of founders like struggle with is basically um, even if they spend like especially if they spend like a lot of time working on the startup is some identity crisis they feel, like
Yep.
I have been known as like Mai from Eventtus, Mai, the CEO of Eventtus. What does it mean right now after there's, for example, no Eventtus or after I sell Eventtus?
Yeah.
So that's, I heard the same thing from like other founders as well when they sell their company or they move on to something else. So like
I can
founders
imagine.
mentality and yeah, that's a big thing and it's a real thing.
Yeah. So thank you very much, May. I like to close like on with gratitude. So my final question to you is: what is a gift that somebody has given you in your life that has made a positive difference on it?
Um, Great question. On um, I don't want to sound like cheesy or anything, but I would say my friendship with Nihal, my co-founder. It was the greatest gift professionally and personally. It's not like something physical, but having this relationship, it saved the company many times, to have someone as a support system throughout the journey. And also outside the business world, we're friends and we're very good friends, best friends, basically. So the emotional support and all of that, that's the greatest gift that got me through a lot of situations and hard times, and basically being there whenever I needed her.
Oh, it's not cheesy. It's actually beautiful. Thank you very much, Mai Medhat, for joining the podcast. Very
Thank you
happy
so
to have
much
you.
for having me.
Thank you, Mai. This episode is sponsored by the venture capital firm Endure Capital. Endure Capital invests in early stage companies that will achieve incredible impact. If you're a founder that fits this criterion, contact the Endure Capital team on www.endurecap.com. That's EndureCap, ENDURECAP. Or just click on the link in the show notes. Thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you for listening to this episode of Startups Arabia podcast. If there was something you really liked about what the guest said today, reach out to them on social media and tell them what you liked. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You don't want to miss any of our great upcoming episodes. Also, please rate us and give us comments on our social media accounts so that we know how to improve. And also tell us what you like. We don't mind hearing that either. Until next time, this was your host, Ali Zwail.